need to go time. His elbow was on the table.
Jerry Cadorette, aka Big Daddy, aka the Ginger Dread Man, aka Jerry the Tongue, is somewhat of an anomaly in the world of arm wrestling. With his signature press move and an unmatched presence at the table, Jerry has carved out a legacy spanning decades. But how exactly did he rise to be such a dominant force, and what challenges shaped his journey along the way? Jerry Cadorette was born on February the 22nd in 1973 in South Attleboro, Massachusetts, USA. His athletic journey began with football, where he captained his high school team and later pursued a college and even semi-pro career in Arkansas. Arm wrestling entered his life during his high school years, thanks to his athletic director, who was a fan of the sport and set up a table in the weight room. Jerry's first taste of competitive arm wrestling came through school competitions at the age of 17, where he experienced a pivotal loss after being considered the favorite. This loss, one that proved to him that there was more to arm wrestling than meets the eye, led him to seek out locals who knew what they were doing. After practicing his skills on the table, now in 1989, he entered his first professional tournament, the New England State Championships, and won it outright. Throughout the next few years, now well and truly into the 1990s, Jerry would continually dominate the field on a state level, as well as earn multiple national titles. From 1992 to 96, he also entered the infamous Yukon Jack tournament 5 out of 6 times, only skipping the 93 edition. He would continuously do better at this tournament, taking 3rd place in the 95 edition after a match loss versus the legendary Cleve Dean, and taking 2nd place in the 96 edition, having only lost to a primed Gary Goodrich. From these tournaments early on in Jerry's career, it's already extremely obvious Jerry had found his proverbial ace in the hole in the flop wrist press. Jerry Cadorette's development and mastery of the flop wrist press technique is widely recognized as one of the defining elements of his arm wrestling career. This move, characterized by intentionally allowing the wrist to collapse during a match and leveraging raw arm strength and shoulder pressure, became his signature style early in his arm wrestling journey, and he would continue to use it to great effect. In 1996, an opportunity like no other would present itself to Jerry Cadorette, one that would unveil his prowess at the flop wrist press to the arm wrestling world at large. The WAF World Championships were being held at Virginia Beach in the USA, a location Jerry was more than able and eager to travel to. He would prove himself by taking home gold on the right hand in the 110 kg category and could now officially call himself World Champion. The main event tournament, held in 1997, was also notorious for attracting some of the biggest talent of the day, but even at such a high-caliber event, Jerry's press ruled supreme in the men's 242-pound class. 1 year later, now in 1998, the Arnold Classic was throwing its first of what would become many arm wrestling tournaments. At this inaugural event, Jerry was happy to take first place in the 95+ kilogram category. After a great decade of arm wrestling, it's clear Jerry Cadorette wanted to start the new millennium with a bang and entered into the very first Harley Pull tournament. The Harley Pulls are a notorious series of events thrown throughout the 2000s, where competitors would battle for the chance to win cash prizes, as well as a brand new Harley motorcycle. However, Jerry would only enter the 2000 edition and ended up taking first place in his weight class and 3rd place in the overalls after only John Brzenk and Dave Randall. He would try to acquire his 2nd world title at the World Arm Sport Federation 2000 World Championships, held at Virginia Beach. He'd also succeed in this endeavor and became world champion once again, this time by taking gold on the right arm in the 110 kg category. In 2001, while Jerry was playing American football at a rather high level, disaster would strike. While playing, Cadorette chipped off a piece of his vertebrae, after which the fragment sliced into his sciatic nerve. And at one time, his condition was so bad that he started to experience nerve damage and a loss of feeling in one of his feet, which he described as downright scary. He went on to say, quote, "They told me I had to stay out of weightlifting and any kind of training for 6 months. 6 months turned into what felt like forever. Once you get out of something, you get into the habit of not training. I'd keep saying next week, next month. That eventually turned into 4 years." Despite this injury, Jerry would soon be lured back to the arm wrestling table, this time because of a $15,000 super match offer to arm wrestle Travis Bagent. The match would take place in 2005 at the Northeast Arm Wrestling Challenge, and even after a long hiatus, Jerry came in strong and confident. The match was clearly closely contested, and both athletes were obviously getting riled up, with each of them fouling out multiple times throughout, and the refs having issues taking control of the match at certain points.
That's him! There's a foul! That's him!
He saw your shoulder, and I saw Jerry coming.
You saw whose shoulder? Oh my good God!
Oh, you follow, he followed, but they cancel each other out.
You bend in your hand every time. That's what you do. You're kicking me just like this.
Come on. Unless we bullshit, unless we get there.
Who's in control? Who's in control? Every time.
After a while, the tension even spills over into the audience, with tournament organizers trying to calm attendees down. After the dust and the seeming unending arguing had settled, Jerry, who came in as the underdog after his hiatus, came out victorious and went home with a substantial prize purse. From his post-match interview with Gary Roberts, it was clear that this win motivated Jerry to keep going.
I told you so. I'll be back. You'll see me in Vegas. You'll see me at the Mike Gould Classic. You'll see me a lot better. This is only 3-4 months right here. Give me 6 months to 8 months, and watch. Just gonna get better and better.
In getting back on the horse, Jerry decided to enter various tournaments over the next few years, and even won several of them, including the Can-Am Championship in the super heavyweight class in 2006. In December of 2007, Jerry would travel down to compete at the Mohegan Sun tournament. With a large portion of the elite North American arm wrestling scene looking on, Jerry appears to have been eliminated relatively early on in the tournament, losing out to a strong Ron Bath. The following year, now 2008, Jerry participated in the Stacked Empire State Tournament, where he got a chance to solidify his dominance over Travis Bagent, beating him in the finals. At the start of the new decade in 2010, at a UAL-organized event in Venice Beach, Jerry would make it to the finals of the heavyweight left arm and narrowly lost. He would also win the right arm class, however, against fierce competition, and perhaps even more impressively, he got the opportunity to pull the GOAT Chambers Inc. in a super match, and actually took the win. Although hotly contested, this drawn-out match showed that Jerry was still a formidable force on the table, once he could fully deploy his lethal flop wrist press. This result must have increased Jerry's stock as he received more opportunities for super matches during 2011, getting a win over Richard Lupkes at the UAL King of the Hill event. He would also secure an invite to the 2011 Nemiroff Cup, but ended up eliminated by a strong Kadzimurat Zoloev in the open weight class. At the start of the following year, Jerry would get the opportunity to avenge this loss though at a PAL Vendetta match against the Russian prodigy. Cadorette won his match versus Zoloev 6-0 in convincing fashion, and although there was some weight discrepancy, it reminded people in the East that Jerry was still an international contender. In the afterpulls at this event, Jerry would get on the table with Chambers Inc., while several elite athletes looked on. The atmosphere during the afterpulls was courteous at first, but after a while developed somewhat of an undercurrent of tension, perhaps giving us a small insight into not only Jerry and John's adversarial relationship, but also Jerry's place as a puller within the elite scene at this time. Perhaps John hadn't quite gotten over his loss against Jerry only a year and a half back.
No. I'm sitting here and I'm coming out like this, and you're coming out like this.
I'm trying to hang on to you, and then you're camping.
My fingers are still here.
If I try top rolling if I top roll like you do, okay, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, that was you. That was you. That was you. All right. Hold on, I'll hang on, hold on.
How come you hang on to me? What are you doing? I'm never slipping away. How come you're slipping away?
Because you're being a bitch.
You and me, we're on.
And he's
That's sad, because we have no arm strength.
Yeah, Mr. Connington, did you hurt your hand holding the mic?
We should know this.
At UAL 3 in 2013, Jerry got on the table for a super match with monster Michael Todd. The two athletes, in a way, represented each other's complete opposites when on the table. Jerry, on the one hand, committed fully to an inside flop wrist press, and Michael, on the other, dropped down low for an outside king's move. This match would somewhat set the stage for future matches between these athletes, being grueling, long, drawn-out affairs, where both are unwilling to give up even an inch. Funnily enough though, in this particular match, both athletes dropped down into a simultaneous king's move, something rarely seen from Jerry. From 2015 onward, like many of his North American peers who were seeking out the biggest competition of the day, Jerry sought to compete at the World Arm Wrestling League, aka the WAL. Coincidentally, if you want to learn more about the WAL in general, you can watch my video on the topic. Cadorette, however, would consistently do well at the tournament era of the league and would as a consequence become somewhat of a mainstay in their supermatch format later in the decade. It was here where Jerry's tenacity and arm wrestling style really shined, and where he accrued some of his most memorable match wins and losses. Over multiple WAL events, Jerry got super match wins on athletes like Ryan Espy, Matt Mask, Michael Todd, and Toddzilla. But what would perhaps become his most infamous match during this time, and one that would mark the end of Jerry's supermatch career in the 2010s, came in the form of a loss against Michael Todd in the WAL 506 heavyweight title match. This grueling match was an escalation of their previous matches and lasted an insanely long amount of time. Neither athlete was willing to give up 1 inch, even if it meant sacrificing arm integrity and possibly even risking injury. The part of this awesome match that would go down in history as extremely egregious though was the ending, during which Michael Todd demanded the win due to a perceived foul and refused to come back to the table. The WAL ultimately relented and gave Michael the win. Jerry, in all likelihood, didn't take this loss well, and arguably with good reason, according to the many that derided Michael's behavior, and eventually Jerry ended up taking a step back from the sport. A subsequent global pandemic though would make sure nearly all his peers had to do the same, essentially putting the competitive arm wrestling world in lockdown. After the world opened up again, the arm wrestling culture had come out a different beast. Not only had it boomed in popularity, there were now talks of exciting new big leagues that would unite the best athletes in the world, and Jerry had no intention of remaining in the shadows. In August of 2022, Jerry would finally seize the opportunity to make his comeback into the big leagues once again. He went up against the Georgian Gennady Kvikvinya in what has become one of mine and a lot of other people's favorite matches of the modern day. Despite a lively back and forth between the two athletes during the match, and a very closely fought match at that, Jerry ended up taking the win. It seems new viewers of arm wrestling needed a reminder that you can never count Jerry out, and if he shows up ready, he not only delivers consistently entertaining matches, but can also still hang with some of the best arm wrestlers in the sport, even after all these decades. 6 months later, now 2023, Jerry would return to Istanbul at East vs West 6 to feature in a match that would become known as the Showdown of the Ill-Fitting Shirts. Georgy Tsvetkov, Jerry's opponent that day, gave our titular American a run for his money, but eventually succumbed to the press like many before him. 2 events later, at East vs West 8, the next rung on the ladder proved to be a little too high for Jerry when he took a 0-3 loss to the Italian Hermes Gasparini. Jerry would later comment on the match, saying, Getting pneumonia last week was the icing on the cake. I knew I shouldn't have went, but I didn't want to screw up the event. Sorry to Hermes that I was not in the proper condition to give him the match he trained for. Despite this, many people were quick to point out that his sickness wouldn't have made a difference, especially since Hermes won so convincingly. More than 1 year later, at East vs West 14, the Polish giant Alex Cadorette would get a chance to try and stop Jerry's resurgence. However, Jerry came in seemingly very strong, and his unique pulling style proved to be too much for Cadorette. His positive supermatch record among the strongest heavyweights in the world, at over 50 years old, keeps Jerry relevant at the highest level. And even though I almost never do deep dives on a person's personal life outside of arm wrestling, Jerry accomplished all this while being a devoted family man and running successful businesses. From his tongue-dominant pulling to his loud battle cries during and after a match, throughout the years, Jerry would become one of the biggest treasure troves of arm wrestling memes. In stark contrast to some of the other memed arm wrestlers though, posts portraying some of his more quirky mannerisms were seldomly posted with any negative undertones, and seemed to, for the most time, applaud the fact that Jerry was always unapologetically himself, on or off the table. In turn, Jerry seems to largely have taken these ribbings in stride, and looks to be, on the surface at least, completely unbothered. At the time of creating this video, Jerry Cadorette is only days away from what might be his biggest match to date. At King of the Table 13, held in the US, he will be facing the undisputed number 1 of the sport, Levan Saginashvili. Depending on when you're watching this, Jerry might even be the new number 1 in the world, or perhaps slightly more likely, will have given his everything on the table and still lost to Levan. Whatever the case may be though, I'm sure we saw his usual exuberance in all its awesome glory, and I for one, hope we'll continue to see him do his thing on the arm wrestling table for many years to come. Thank you to everyone for watching, and a special shout out to all the Armians and Fingerfolk. If you've watched until this point, please consider subscribing to the channel for future similar content. Arm Historian, out.